Okay, let's unpack this. Welcome back to the deep dive.
It's good to be here.
Today's mission is, it's a bit different for us. We're not doing a narrative breakdown.
No. No history, no lore.
We are performing a cold, surgical, technical audit. We're looking at a single military asset from the 10th edition of Warhammer 40,000.
A very specific one. Captain Demetrian Titus, Master of the Watch.
And his retinue, the Wardens of Ultramar. This is all about the numbers.
That's absolutely right. Our sources for this are, well, they're exhaustive. We're pulling from the latest statistical audits, the technical readouts, and all the match play data from the December 2025 Munitorum Field Manual.
And just to be clear, we are stripping away all the thematic stuff, right? The heroism, the story.
Everything. The cinematic field doesn't matter here. We're looking purely at the mathematical justification for this unit's existence on the tabletop.
We need to figure out if his data sheet, as it stands today, actually justifies that epic hero status. And this is the big one, his 120-point cost.
It all comes down to the points.
Exactly. And for you, the listener, maybe you're building a competitive list, or maybe you're just curious why some units just seem to warp the meta. Our goal here is to give you a shortcut.
A shortcut to understanding his strategic efficacy, the mathematical breakpoints, those aha moments where you see the raw points efficiency.
We'll be looking at the big three: durability, lethality, and utility.
In this edition, games are won and lost on those efficiency ratios. It's not just about brute force anymore.
So we have a threshold for success then.
A simple one. If a unit costs you 120 points, it absolutely has to force your opponent to commit assets, firepower or melee, that cost 150 points or more just to get him off the table for good.
If he does that, he's making a profit.
He's operating at a profit. It's that simple.
So that's the big data-driven question for today. What is Captain Titus really, when you strip it all back? Is he a duelist, an unkillable anvil? Or is he, statistically speaking, just a massive anomaly that's kind of breaking the efficiency curve right now?
Let's find out. Let's start the audit.
Okay, phase one. Let's start with how we even classify this guy. The internal design notes suggest he's not a standard template. He feels like a very unusual hybrid.
He is. His primary classification is, without a doubt, a durable anvil. His main job is resource absorption.
Soaking up
damage and, more importantly, wasting the opponent's time. But he has this very strong secondary classification as a beatstick duelist. A huge focus on melee lethality.
That feels contradictory. Usually you pay a sort of tax for a unit that tries to do everything at once.
You absolutely do, and that's a fantastic point. Most top-tier characters specialize. You get an anvil who is incredibly tough but hits like a wet noodle, or a beatstick who can shatter a tank but, dies if you look at him funny.
And Titus tries to be both.
He tries to bridge that gap. The source material, however, is pretty clear that his primary function, his real value, is as that anvil. He's designed to force opponents into making mathematically bad trades.
Bad trades? You mean they have to overcommit resources to deal with him?
Exactly. The success threshold we talked about, the data says he needs to force the opponent to throw, say, 150, maybe 200 points of assets at him just to try and remove him.
And he only costs 120.
So if your opponent points a 180-point tank or a 200-point elite melee squad at your 120-point captain, you've already won that trade. He's generated profit for you before he's even swung his sword.
Okay, so let's get into the chassis. What makes that possible? He's in standard Tacticus Mark X power armor, plus the Iron Halo. That sounds pretty standard for Captain.
It sounds standard, but the notes really emphasize a layered defensive stack. It goes way beyond the baseline you'd expect.
Let's get granular then.
Yeah.
What are the specific stats from Table 2 in the source data?
Okay, so movement is a standard 6 inches. Toughness, or T, is 4. That's your basic Marine benchmark. Nothing special there.
But then you get to wounds.
And that's where the resilience starts to stack up. He has 6 wounds. That's a high-tier character threshold. And it's an increase from his old profile, which was 5.
Just one extra wound? That seems minor.
It's anything but minor. That single extra wound, when you combine it with the other layers of defense, it pushes his durability breakpoints way, way up.
All right, and the saves.
Standard 3+ armor save. Check. A 4++ invulnerable save from the Iron Halo. Check. But this next one, this is the single most critical detail that makes him a monster.
The feel no pain.
The feel no pain FMP of 5++++. We really need to spend a moment on this because this is what turns him from just a tough character into a genuine resource sponge.
Oh, so?
Well, if he just had 6 wounds and a 4++ save, he'd be good, sure. but predictable. You could do the math pretty easily. The FNP adds a layer of volatility for your opponent.
It makes their damage unreliable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Against lots of small attacks, it's a nice little buffer. But its real job, its competitive purpose, is to mitigate multi-damage weapons, the exact tools people use to assassinate characters.
So, like, a last cannon hits him, it's high damage, it ignores his armor save. The FNP is his last line of defense.
Precisely. Let's say a melt-a-gun hits him. The opponent gets lucky, rolls high, and pushes 5 points of damage through your invulnerable save.
That should kill most characters.
It should. But Titus gets 5 separate individual 5+ rolls to just ignore each of those damage points. Statistically, he's likely to shrug off at least 1 or 2 of them. He survives.
It dampens the impact of those big, scary anti-character guns.
It forces the opponent to not just bring high AP and high damage, but to bring overkill damage, just to be sure. And that is incredibly inefficient.
Okay, so we have this deeply resilient foundation. Let's talk points. He's at 120 now, which is a 25-point drop from when he first launched.
And that decrease was the tipping point. That's what made him competitively viable. At 120, he's a genuine choice. He slots in against guys like Marnius Calgar, but he's cheaper and does a different job.
The price drop moved him from a fun narrative choice to a must-consider competitive piece.
Just on the efficiency ratio alone, yes.
All right, let's quickly hit his offensive systems. He's a hybrid, so he has to do some damage. He's got a master-crafted bolt rifle and a master-crafted chainsword.
The bolt rifle is all about utility. It's 2 shots, hits on a 2+1, strength 4, AP 1, damage 1. But look at the keywords: assault and heavy.
So he can advance and shoot or stand still and get a bonus?
Right. Assault keeps him mobile. Heavy means if he does stand still, he's basically auto-hitting. It's just reliable, consistent chip damage. Good for finishing off a wounded model or clearing a single guy off an objective.
But the real business is the chainsword.
Oh, absolutely. The master-crafted chainsword. 8 attacks, hitting on a 2+ fate, strength 5, AP 1, damage 2.
That S5 and D2 combo feels important.
It's critical for hitting specific enemy breakpoints. Strength 5 means he's wounding standard T4 Marines on a 3+ skate. That's a 33% improvement over a generic S4 captain.
And damage 2.
That means every successful wound kills a standard 2-wound Marine outright, or 2 shots a 3-wound model, like most elite infantry these days. He's built to kill other elite infantry.
And we haven't even mentioned the most important part of that profile yet.
The part that defines his entire offensive identity, the anti-infantry 2+ keyword. We'll be coming back to that in a big way when we calculate his actual lethality.
Here's where it gets really interesting. We're moving past the static numbers now and into the abilities that shape the game. We know he's tough, but the single most defining thing about Titus is his Honor of Ultramar ability,
which the community very accurately calls the resurrection loop.
Explain this mechanic for us, because this is the absolute core engine of his strategic value.
Okay, so Honor of Ultramar it's a really sophisticated bit of design. It creates what we call a recursive threat loop. It only triggers under a very specific condition.
Which is?
He has to be destroyed by a melee attack, and it has to happen before he's had a chance to fight in that phase.
So he gets charged and killed before he can swing.
Exactly. If that happens, you roll a d6. On a 2 or higher, he is not removed from the table. Instead, he immediately gets to perform a full combat activation.
That is terrifying for the player who just charged him. They think they've succeeded, they've killed him, and suddenly he's fighting back.
It is, because that's when the second part kicks in, the glory kill clause. If, during that surprise activation, Titus destroys any enemy model.
Any model at all.
Just one. If he does, he instantly regains D3 wounds, and the is not removed part becomes permanent. He shrugs off what should have been a killing blow and just keeps on fighting.
So if an opponent charges him with any unit that has even one easy-to-kill model in it,
he has an 83.33% chance, that's a 2+ roll, of completely negating his own death and standing right back up.
This is why you call him a black hole. The failure chance is tiny.
It's just a 16.67% chance rolling that 1. That's the volatility penalty. From a competitive viewpoint, forcing your opponent to commit resources for an 83% chance that you just say nope is a winning trade every single time. It changes their entire game plan. They can't reliably kill him in melee anymore.
Hold on. Doesn't this ability, just by existing, discourage anyone from ever charging him in the first place? Doesn't that mean it rarely even gets used?
That's exactly the point. The psychological impact is almost as valuable as the rule itself. It's active deterrence. The enemy looks at him and knows that charging is a huge risk. They might lose their own unit, and Titus will still be standing there.
So it forces them to try and shoot him from a distance.
Which is much harder when he's buried inside a big bodyguard unit. It forces them into inefficient plays. Titus controls the engagement just by being on the board.
Okay, so let's put a price on this. We need to do the hybrid tax calculation. A generic Primaris captain with a similar melee buff costs about 95 points. Titus is 120. What are we paying for with that 25-point tax?
You have to itemize it. Those 25 points buy you 4 distinct tactical assets that, together, are worth way more than the cost.
Itemize them.
First, that crucial 6th wound. Second, the 5+++ feel no pain. Third, that unique anti-infantry 2+ keyword, which is a massive damage multiplier we'll get to. And fourth, the resurrection loop itself, that 83% chance to get back up.
So the verdict from the audit is pretty clear.
The 25-point surcharge is an exceptional value. The disruption this unit causes completely justifies that small points increase. He's not just 25 points better than a generic captain, he's tactically 100 points better because of how he warps the opponent's decision-making.
Now for the really deep math. The effective wounds, EW calculation. How much raw damage does an opponent actually need to land to statistically kill Titus once, factoring in all these layers?
This is where we stop thinking of him as an infantry model and start thinking of him as a light vehicle. Against non-precision damage, the math shows that an opponent needs to inflict approximately 18 successful damage points to have a statistical certainty of removing him.
18. That's a staggering number for one guy in power armor. What does that mean in, real-world terms on the tabletop?
It means you probably need to commit 2 full squads of elite anti-infantry shooting, or dedicate multiple turns of fire from a heavy weapon platform. It's the equivalent of trading 3 of your units for 1 of his.
And the data compares this to a Land Raider.
In many common scenarios, yes. It often takes more raw, successful damage to kill Titus than it does to kill a Land Raider, which is a T-12 16-wound armored tank.
That's why he's an anvil. He's just absorbing an insane amount of firepower that should be going somewhere else.
He's a resource sink. His entire purpose is to maximize what we call time-on-target efficiency for you. Every bullet your opponent wastes on Titus is a bullet that isn't killing your tanks or objective holders.
We have the perfect case study for this, the Berserker test. We take 5 Khorne Berserkers who are dedicated melee blenders, and we run the math. What happens when they charge Titus?
This is a classic efficiency test. The Berserkers hit him with 25 attacks. They're strong, so they generate about 13 or 14 wounds against his toughness 4.
Okay, so that's a lot of wounds.
It is, but then Titus gets his 4++ invulnerable save. That cuts the number of wounds way down. Then, for whatever damage is left, he gets his 5++ plus feel no pain.
And the final number.
The final calculation shows that those 5 Berserkers, a dedicated melee unit, only managed to deal 4.6 net damage to him.
He's still alive, with 1.4 wounds left, statistically. 5 elite melee killers fail to kill 120-point captain.
They fail completely. And here's the kicker. Even if they get super lucky with their rolls and do manage to kill him,
he just triggers the 2+ resurrection.
Fights back, probably kills one of them, and stands right back up. The Berserkers have spent their turn, committed their unit, and failed. It's a losing trade for them every single time.
So he gets hit, he survives. Now he gets to hit back. Let's shift to his offense. He gives his whole unit the press the attack ability, which is sustained hits 1.
And this is the utility piece that makes his bodyguard unit so much better. Sustained hits 1 means every 6 you roll to hit generates an extra hit.
It's a damage multiplier.
A significant one. And the analysis emphasizes that it scales incredibly well with units that already have a high volume of attacks. It just makes them more efficient, lets them punch above their weight.
Okay, now let's go back to Titus himself. The Strength 5 and Anti-Infantry 2 plus Breakpoint analysis. We know S5 is good, but why is that Anti-Infantry 2 plus keyword the real game changer?
Because it lets him completely ignore the normal wound chart against infantry. The whole strength versus toughness calculation, he just bypasses it.
You're not rolling a 3+ or 4+ to wounds anymore.
You're wounding on a 2+ saw, pretty much automatically.
Give us the numbers on that, especially against the kind of elite infantry we see all the time. T5 models.
Let's use Terminators as the benchmark. They're toughness 5. A normal captain, even with a strong weapon, is wounding them on a 4+ sec. That's a 50% chance.
Titus.
Thanks to anti-infantry 2+ sec, Titus wounds them on a 2+ sec. That's an 83.3% chance. That is a 150% increase in his wounding probability. He turns one of the toughest infantry targets in the game into something he wounds almost without fail.
So the audit is clear. This is his specialty.
Absolutely. The data in Table 3 shows a massive gain against T5 infantry and, importantly, 0 gain against things like light vehicles. He's not a generalist. He is a specialized infantry and character killer. Point him at a tank and you're just wasting his time.
Okay, so he's tough as nails and he wounds infantry like a dream. We have to talk about the big weakness then, the conditional fail, the AP1 problem. If he wounds so easily, why isn't he just deleting whole squads?
The bottleneck is his armor penetration. AP1 is just, it's not enough in the current meta, not against the top-tier defensive unit.
You call this the AP bounce effect.
It's the practical term for it, yeah. Let's run the Terminator test again, but for his damage output. A Terminator has a 2+ armor save. Titus's AP1 chainsword knocks that down to a 3+ save.
Which is still very good.
Very good.
Yeah.
But now, what if that Terminator is in cover? Or what if the opponent uses a defensive stratagem like Armor of Contempt?
The AP1 gets negated. They're back to saving on a 2+4.
Correct. And just like that, the efficiency of his 2+ wound roll is completely wasted. The opponent just shrugs off the damage.
But with 8 attacks, hitting on 2s and wounding on 2s.
Yeah.
Some of that has to get through, right?
Some does, but not enough. Against a standard Terminator squad with no buffs on their end, Titus generates only 3.69 expected damage per activation.
Terminators have 3 wounds each, so he can't even reliably kill 2 of them.
He can't. And that's the critical distinction. He's a phenomenal infantry wounder, but because of his low AP, he's a poor infantry killer against the really tough targets. Not without help.
So the final conclusion on his lethality is conditional.
It's firm. He struggles to reliably remove high-cost targets on his own. You have to think of him as part of a system. He needs his unit to provide extra attacks, and he really needs a detachment roll or stratagem that can give him an extra point of AP to push that damage through. Otherwise, he's best used to bully weaker units or just stand on an objective and refuse to die.
So Titus is almost never alone. He leads a megablob, and the most common choice is the Wardens of Ultramar. The sources call them a pseudo-character unit. What does that even mean?
The Wardens are, they're unique. They're not a standard command squad. They deliberately mix a few powerful Astartes models with a bunch of regular T3 mortal advisors.
So it's a mix of elite and chaff in one squad.
Exactly. The full unit is 7 models, but they have a combined total of 20 wounds. They're designed to be a blade of armor for Titus, but the stats on them are where things get, frankly, a little crazy.
Let's get into that. The cost efficiency. This is where they become a statistical anomaly, right?
Mm-hmm.
There are 165 points for those 20 wounds. We need the points per wound PPW calculation.
Right. Let's benchmark it. A squad of intercessors, your standard troop, comes in at about 8.0 PPW. Elite Blade Guard veterans are around 8.89 PPW.
And the Wardens?
Well, at 165 points, their PPW is 8.25, so comparable to intercessors. But there's a wrinkle in the data. Some of the most recent competitive sources use a much lower cost estimate for them.
An updated cost.
An estimated competitive cost of only 90 points. And if we use that number, the whole efficiency metric just breaks. The Warden's PPW plummets to 4.5.
4.5. That's nearly twice as efficient as a standard Space Marine. How is that possible for a unit that's partly made of squishy mortals?
It's their composition and their job. They are, statistically, the most points-efficient durability sink in the entire Space Marine Army list. Yes, some models are T3, but they still have a 4+ save and 3 wounds each.
So it's just sheer volume.
Sheer volume. The enemy has to chew through 20 wounds to even get to Titus. It's a massive speed bump designed to absorb small arms fire, which lets Titus and the other Astartes in the unit weather the big, high AP shots. They are cheap, expendable meat shields.
Okay, they're cheap wounds. But they also bring what might be the single most valuable utility tool we've discussed today, Strategic Command.
This ability is almost unquantifiable in its value. It lets you redeploy up to 3 of your units, not just the Wardens, but any 3 units after both players have already deployed their entire armies.
That's a zero-cost tactical schist. That feels game-breaking.
It's incredibly powerful. Deployment is arguably the most important phase of the game, so the ability to bait your opponent, to make them commit their anti-tank guns to one side of the board, and then just pick up your entire Titus Deathstar and move it to the other unprotected flank.
It's the ultimate gotcha move.
It completely negates your opponent's deployment advantage. It lets you react instead of predict, and that tactical freedom is what makes taking those T3 mortals completely worth it. The advantage it gives you is priceless.
All right, let's run the bodyguard synergy comparison. The Wardens are a statistical marvel, but what about the unit that feels like the more obvious choice? Blade Guard veterans.
Blade Guard are the more traditional melee choice, and they're definitely tougher on an individual level. They all have 4++ invulnerable saves. If Titus leads 6 of them, that unit puts out 30 attacks on the charge.
And with Titus's sustained hits 1 aura.
That provides a flat 20% increase in hit volume. Those 30 attacks suddenly become 30-plus hits on average. It's a significant lethality spike, and their invulnerable saves make the whole unit much more resilient to high AP shooting.
But we always come back to the efficiency tax.
Always. Blade guards are much more expensive per wound, closer to 10.0 up PPW, so you're making a trade-off. The Blade Guard offer higher quality defense, but the Wardens offer vastly superior quantity and game-changing utility with the redeploy.
For pure objective control and resource absorption, the Wardens win.
Statistically, yes. They are the more efficient choice for leveraging Titus's resilience.
And quickly, what about the high-risk, high-reward option, Hellblasters? His aura on their overcharged plasma gun sounds apocalyptic.
The lethality is, on paper, breathtaking. A 10-man Hellblaster squad with sustained hits 1 can reliably wound a T-10 vehicle. They become a legitimate tank-killing threat, which solves the AP1 problem entirely.
So why isn't everyone doing this?
Because the risk of them blowing themselves up is catastrophic. Titus doesn't have the apothecary keyword, so he can't bring them back or heal them. He offers 0 protection from hazardous checks.
And the math on that.
We ran the simulation. The probability of at least 1 Hellblaster dying to their own gun when 10 of them overcharge is a staggering 83.8%.
So they are almost guaranteed to start killing themselves.
Precisely. It's a blast cannon. You're basically sacrificing the entire unit for 1 incredible turn of shooting. It's just too fragile to be reliable.
So the final call on his bodyguard is clear.
The Warden-Titus pairing is the winner for competitive efficiency. The redeploy and the sheer points per wound durability sink they provide are just too good to pass up. They buy Titus the time he needs to get to the middle of the board and become an anchor.
Okay, we've established the unit is a monster of durability and utility. But getting it where it needs to go is a huge problem. We have to talk about the delivery value equation, the Land Raider tax.
This is the primary barrier to entry. It's the logistical bottleneck. A full, optimized unit that's Titus, the 7-model Warden squad, and maybe 6 Blade Guard to fill it out, is 14 models.
And 14 models don't fit in most transports.
They don't fit in anything but the biggest. You need a Land Raider, specifically a Land Raider Crusader or a Redeemer.
So let's add it all up. The total investment.
It's huge. You have Titus at 120 points, the Wardens at 165, the Blade Guard at 175, and a Land Raider Crusader at 145. That's a grand total of 605 points.
605. In a standard 2,000-point game, that's over 30% of your entire army. That is a massive Deathstar tax.
Yeah.
That one unit has to do an unbelievable amount of work to justify that cost.
It does, but its job isn't to kill everything. Its job is guaranteed board presence and enemy resource denial. And this brings us back to his true role in the meta. The Audit defines him not as a fighter, but as a structural buffer, a high-efficiency anchor.
Break that down. Fighter versus buffer.
As a fighter, he's a bully. He's great at clearing out weaker infantry, T3, T4 stuff. He can trade okay with elites because of his special rule. But as we said, he just bounces off the really tough things. Big vehicles, monsters, custodes. The AP1 just isn't enough.
But as a buffer.
As a buffer, he's S tier. He provides tactical dominance. You get the sustained hits aura for his unit. You get that incredible redeploy. And the whole blob has a combined objective control value of 24. They can walk onto a central objective, and it's basically impossible to shift them off.
His job is to hold the center, not clear the board.
Exactly. Which leads us to the black hole strategic utility. He doesn't just hold an objective, he fundamentally distorts your opponent's entire game plan just by being there.
He creates a paradox for them.
He creates an unwinnable dilemma. Your opponent has 2 choices, and both of them are bad.
Choice 1, they ignore the unit.
If they ignore it, they immediately lose control of the primary objective. They lose the game on points. And they now have to deal with a massive, unkillable countercharge threat that's about to roll up their flank.
Okay, so they can't ignore him. Choice 2, they try to kill him.
And if they do that, they have to commit 500, maybe 600 points of their best shooting to chew through 44 wounds, many with invulnerable saves, only to then face an 83% chance that Titus just stands back up and keeps fighting.
It's a lose-lose situation. They waste their army killing him, and he might not even die, or they let him win the game for free.
The center of the board becomes a strategic black hole where enemy resources go to die. So the question isn't, how much does Titus kill? The real question is, how many points of the enemy army does Titus neutralize just by existing? And the answer is usually 500 to 600 points a game.
And that right there is the justification for the 605-point Land Raider tax.
It is. The Land Raider is just the disposable armored box that gets the black hole to where it needs to go.
All right, let's make this actionable for the listener. Operational guidelines for deployment. How do top players actually use this 605-point asset?
There are a few key protocols. The first is the aggressive option, the Vespator protocol.
Describe it.
You put the whole mega blob in the Land Raider and you deploy it right on the front line as aggressively as possible, aim straight at the central objective on turn 1. You make the threat immediate and absolute.
But what if your opponent deployed their own heavy anti-tank guns to counter that exact play?
That's when you pivot to the redeploy protocol, using the Warden's ability. If you see less cannons, railguns, whatever, with a clear shot at your Land Raider, you just use Strategium Command and move the whole thing into reserves.
Or turn 2 arrival.
For turn 2 rapid ingress. You completely negate their first turn of shooting. You force them to waste their most valuable assets for a whole turn while your biggest threat is safe off board.
That turns the Land Raider from a target into bait. That's incredibly smart.
It is. And the final, most advanced tactic is the countercharge trap. This is how you weaponize his resurrection rule to guarantee you win a key combat.
How do you set that trap?
You intentionally position Titus just behind a cheaper sacrificial screen unit, like some intercessors. The enemy charges your screen. You then use the heroic intervene stratagem to pull Titus into that same combat.
Okay, so he's in the fight.
And here's the counterintuitive part. Your tactical goal is to let the enemy kill Titus in that fight. He is the bait.
You want them to kill him. After we just established it takes 18 points of damage.
You want them to overcommit everything they have to succeed. Because the moment he dies, his 2+ resurrection triggers. He gets a full fight activation before he's removed. He kills one of their models, which triggers the glory kill. He regains D3 wounds, and he stands right back up.
So you punish them for succeeding. They kill him, lose some of their own models, and he's still there holding the objective at the end of it.
You turn their success into a catastrophic strategic failure. It's weaponizing a failure state.
Genius. And finally, target priority. Where should players be pointing him?
The guidelines are crystal clear. You direct Titus only into infantry, Terminators, Possessed, anything where that anti-infantry 2+ rule sings. You avoid vehicles, anything T9 or higher where the math just doesn't work. He's a scalpel for infantry, not a hammer for tanks.
That was an incredibly deep technical dive. Let's wrap it up with the final efficiency verdict summary. How does he rate?
Resilience rating, a 9.5 out of 10. The combination of wounds, layered saves, and the resurrection loop makes him arguably the single most durable infantry character in the game. He is a certified resource sponge.
Utility rating.
A perfect 10 out of 10. The Strategium Command redeploy is game-winning on its own, and the OC-24 on the unit guarantees you can hold objectives. This is what pays for the Land Raider tax.
And finally, lethality.
A 7 out of 10. He's highly effective against his chosen targets, elite infantry, but that AP1 problem really holds him back against the absolute top-tier defensive profiles and makes him useless against vehicles.
So the overall conclusion is pretty definitive. Captain Titus with the Wardens is a top-tier centerpiece. He redefines what durability means for Space Marine infantry, and his value is far, far greater than that 25-point surcharge.
The key takeaway is this. Titus isn't valuable because of what he kills. He's valuable because of the time and resources he costs your opponent. Our analysis proves that in competitive play, an 83% chance of resilience is often much more valuable than raw damage output. He's a guarantee of presence, an anchor for your whole army.
We've seen the math, we've seen the tactics, but now for that final implication, the one thing for you to mull over.
Considering that immense Land Raider tax we discussed, the 605 points, over 30% of your army tied up in this one unit, does the overall efficiency of your list suffer too much? Or is guaranteeing you control the center of the board, creating that strategic black hole, worth sacrificing almost a third of your entire army's budget? That's the ultimate cost-benefit analysis, and that's something for you to explore.